Welcome back to another edition of Just Talking with Joe Burdick. My next guest I met in 2019, and we haven't talked pretty much since then. Well, we saw each other a couple of times, but I'm sure you'd probably rather be watching the Red Hot Cavaliers right now. But my next guest was a star at St. Ignatius High School playing for the legendary Coach Kyle. He played football at The Ohio State University, got his MBA from Stanford Grad School. This is quite a list. Former congressman for Ohio's 16th district. His grandparents fled Cuba in the Castro regime. He was the 32nd pick in the 2000 draft by the Colts, and he was one of 3 Ohio State receivers, and he has 3 wins versus that team up north. My next guest, Anthony Gonzalez. Anthony and I met in 2019. I have a wooden flag business, and I wanted to get him one of my wooden flags. And Anthony, I met him at his office, and then he actually, I delivered my son and I hand delivered a flag to your office in DC, but unfortunately I timed it out where you were literally leaving DC as I was getting there. But then you came on Veterans Day, you came to the North Royalton Rec Center and you said the nicest things about me and my flags and what I do. And you said how my flags inspire you every single day. And that meant so much to me. And I wanted to have this conversation with you and share your story, what got you into politics, what you're doing now, all that stuff. But Anthony, thank you for coming on my podcast. How you doing?
Oh, no, my pleasure. Thank you. The comments were sincere. Having your flags in our offices was honestly, it was really special. We had it right above the door. My Strongsville office was right above the door, and then my DC office was also right above the door. So I couldn't walk in or out of my office without either office without seeing it, because the story as to why you make them and how you make them, and how we honor our veterans who've had some tough times, I think is just incredible. It really, honestly, it just sort of takes your breath away. And so I found it to be really cool, and just a great reminder of why you do it, why you serve in Congress and put up with all the nonsense that's out there. But no, it was great to have them, and it really meant a lot to me and to everybody in our office. So honored to be here, happy to chat, and we'll take it wherever you want to go.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I always joked, and I said, I would tell people, I said, he said the nicest things. It's like a commercial. I almost owe him money for that. But of course, with ethics, you can't, there was no paying you anything. But I've taken that business and my philanthropy so far since 2019. It's actually been incredible, the things that I've gotten to do and the doors that it's opened for me. And one of the things it's done was kind of inspired me to do this. This podcast started as a way to reach out to veterans and let them share their story. And it kind of branched out to, well, there's a lot of people that are helping veterans or military related, and I wanted to bring them into, Gold Star moms. I did 2 podcasts with a couple of Gold Star moms whose sons were killed in Afghanistan in the pullout, and a Medal of Honor recipient, and a lot of really interesting people. So your story is also very interesting. So I know, getting ready for this, I was looking to see if you had done any other podcasts or anything in the last few years, and I couldn't find anything. So I'm honored that you're doing this with me. And, and again, like I said earlier, I appreciate you taking the time away from the family. So this means a lot to me. So thank you ahead of time.
No, my pleasure. And like I said, that one of my kids might run in here at some point, but I think we're good. But
I wish one of mine would run in here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I got a
But
4 and 6-year-old, so they're at a fun age. I mean, anybody who's got young kids or has had young kids, it's like the
yeah,
cutest thing. You walk in and I'm reading a book for the first time to themselves, and it's like, oh man, what a cool thing. So
I know.
anyway, we're having fun.
Yeah, that's good. And it goes by so fast. When, it seems so, I don't know, whatever the word is, cliche or whatever. When a parent tells you that it goes by fast, it's not a lie. I mean, I swear to God, it seems like last year I was reading the books to my kids before I was tucking them in at night, and now they're both off at college, and it's crazy.
I
So,
know. I know. I'm trying to cherish the moments. I like, they say like, don't stop and smell the roses. I actually think it's really good to stop and smell the roses because, these times they're fleeting. And AJ Hawk, an old teammate of mine, has a saying, these are the good old days. And I try to just like keep that in mind. I tell my team that I'm running a business today. It's like, don't forget, it's hard. It's it's messy and things get tough, but don't forget these are actually the good old days. So better enjoy them.
Yep, that's right. Well, let's go back a little bit. So you played for the Buckeyes. Everybody in Northeast Ohio, I guess most people in Ohio, we're all Buckeyes fans. What was it like playing for the Buckeyes? I mean, you had to have a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no, it was awesome. It was honestly like my first year and a half were not great. I was pretty immature when I got there, and I didn't come in prepared the way that I needed to, and so I redshirted my first year, and just was trying to figure out college. I think like a lot of kids, you're homesick. My high school girlfriend and I broke up. I thought the world ended. All these sort of things that are silly in hindsight. But after the first year, started to get my feet underneath me a little bit, and then midway through my second year, started to play, and really like the same cohort of people started playing at the same time. It was myself, Ted Ginn, Troy Smith, Antonio Pittman, who was a running back, and then some of our linemen. And that was sort of our crew. And we all kind of grew up together at Ohio State. We all kind of experienced being on TV for the first time and getting to run out of the tunnel with the crowd cheering and being able to make plays at Ohio Stadium. And then you mentioned getting to beat the team up north 3 times. I really love that. So it, that game has been a holiday in our household for my entire life. So it was really special. And I think Coach Tressel he was probably the best leader I've ever been exposed to when it comes to making you really appreciate the special opportunity that you have in front of you. And so we were grateful every day. Hard days, good days, didn't matter. We knew we had something special, and it felt like a special time. And so I was honored to do it. I try to go back once a year and see the training staff is still kind of there, and getting to catch up with the coaches and all that stuff. I've kind of kept in touch with some of them, and so it's really just such a blessing, honestly. The gift of Ohio State football and Buckeye Nation is a gift that just keeps on giving. And so very, very pleased with that.
And going up there and beating those guys, they had to talk some serious trash.
Yeah, it was more like a mutual respect thing. I think you knew, at least for us, like every game that we played prior to that game was relatively easy. It's not that we didn't have hard games, but like you knew that you had to bring your absolute best for that game. It was the game that was going to have the hardest hitting. It was the game that was going to be the most difficult. You're going to play the best guys. And, for me, my year, we had 2 All-Americans from Ohio, one from Massillon, one from Warren Harding, Sean Crable and Prescott Burgess, who were going to come to Ohio State, and then they ended up going up to Michigan. And so getting to play them every year and kind of stick it to them. And they were rated higher than, all the guys, like they were certainly rated higher than me in high school. And then Pittman and Troy and and those guys. And so getting to go up there and stick it to them a little bit added some sweetness to it. They're good guys, but just you kind of get those chips on your shoulder. But no, those were awesome games. Like I remember everything about those weeks and all the special parts associated with it. The games still come on every now and then, and I'm not one to like watch old highlights, but if one of the old Ohio State Michigan games comes on that I was a part of, I'm definitely gonna keep it on.
Oh, heck yeah. You played with Marvin Harrison, right?
I did. Yeah. He was, I was drafted to the Colts in 2007. I had 2 years with him. It's funny. Coach Tressel actually sent me my file. He keeps all files on people. He sent me my file a couple months ago, and in it had who's your idol as a football player, and mine was always Marvin Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting to play with him was really cool because I just thought he was the best receiver I'd ever seen.
And his son, I mean, he looks like the real deal, and he's a spitting image of his dad, isn't he?
Well, he's a lot taller than his dad, but he's about 6'5". I'll tell you what, he's an incredible football player. He might be an even better person. And I'm talking about Junior. So I met Junior when he was 5 years old, and he was running around the Colts facility on Saturdays. We would let the kids come in, and we'd be playing catch with them and all that. And then I hadn't seen him since I left the Colts, and I was doing a fundraiser at the varsity club, or above the varsity club. There's a new thing there, and this was in Congress or pre-Congress, I think. Anyway, so car drives by, somebody pulls out, guy gets out and starts yelling my name, and I'm like, who the heck is that? I couldn't tell who it was. And he gets out and he starts flagging me down. I'm like, well, I don't know who this is, but I'll go over. It ended up being Marvin and his son, and Junior was on his official visit, and we talked for a little bit, and he was just as nice as can be. And then every time I went back to Ohio State after that, he'd always come say hello. He'd always ask for advice, and I'd always say, like, "You're better than I'll ever be." Like, you don't need my advice, but just very humble, very kind kid. Man, he's not a kid anymore. And an incredible football player. So I am a huge Marvin Harrison Jr. fan. I just, obviously I know his dad well and always had a great relationship with him, but he's a wonderful kid, and really excited to see what he can do in the NFL.
Yeah. I love seeing Buckeyes do well in the league. So
no, that's always fun. It's good to see. It's good for Ohio State, honestly, because as a recruit, you're looking at that and seeing who's putting people in the NFL and how are they doing. So it's important.
So what do you think of college players, the NIL? You co-sponsored that bill, right?
I did. Now, I will say that bill never passed, but the concept of NIL and athletes getting an opportunity to earn, money that is based on who they are, their name, image, and likeness. I've been in favor of that since I played at Ohio State. Partially, it kind of comes from two things. It comes from, one, I just fundamentally believe that people who are generating the revenue for anything deserve to have a piece of it. I don't care what we're talking about. If we're talking about business, sports, entertainment, whatever it is. Like, if you're out there busting your butt and you're the one that people are coming to see, I think you deserve a share of that in some form or fashion. And the other was when I was redshirt freshman, Troy Smith got suspended for the bowl game and the first game of the next year for I think somebody gave him $500 or something like that. Troy Smith's a Heisman Trophy winner. I don't know how much revenue he generated for Ohio State, but it felt to me like, taking away his opportunity for $500 just didn't feel like fair to me. I felt like he, I don't know what he deserved, but at $500, I don't know, like, Troy doesn't come for money. The $500 that Troy was going to, put food in his mouth and, maybe buy him some clothes. And so it just always felt like, gosh, these kids, especially the ones who come from really tough environments, they deserve something. And so I've always been in favor of that. I think the way it's been implemented is frankly pretty dumb. I think the NCAA has really messed this up, which maybe isn't too surprising. They've messed up a lot of stuff, but I am in favor of it. I just think they need to administer it a lot better.
I mean, there's some kids that are making a lot of money.
Yeah, they are. And again, for some people that turns them off. For me, I just think, hey, if that's what people are willing to pay them, I don't know why I would have anything against that. I think it's more just, if people have said, like, should they be capped? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what profession would we, should anybody be capped, really? I don't know. I mean, I think the market should kind of dictate a lot of this stuff. But again, what I would like, and this is where I think they've gone wrong, is, the mix of NIL and the transfer portal, I think, has created a system where everybody's a free agent 365 days a year. It's not even like, I heard stories of the teams that were in the college football playoff. Keep in mind, they're in the playoff. They had to raise money to pay kids on their roster not to get into the portal during the playoff. And so, basically, like, we need you to help practice, and so we're going to pay you just to stay, and then after the playoffs, go in the portal. I mean, that to me is obviously silly. And the thing about it that I think is the most broken when you have that system is the education suffers completely. So, like, to me, it's always been, the purpose of college is to prepare people for their lives. And if we have a system where everybody's a free agent every year and you're transferring 3, 4, 5 times over the course of your college career, I just don't know what education you get. And I think you probably don't get a very good one. And, sure, maybe you made, I don't know, a couple $100,000, which is a lot of money, but that's going to go away as soon as you leave. And so you're left with a little bit of money left over, over the course of years, and no education. And I think that's where you've really failed the kids. And so I think what I would do is I would have rules around how often you can transfer. And I would want the kids to at least have 2 years in each school so that they can at least develop academically. Because otherwise, I just don't know what you're doing. Otherwise, I don't think anybody benefits.
Right. So draft day's coming up. What was your draft day like?
Draft day. That was stressful. That was really stressful. Everybody thinks it's a great party, and it became one once I got drafted. But
yeah,
I was the last pick of the first round. A goal I set when I got to Ohio State was I wanted to be an academic All-American, and I wanted to be a first-round pick. I thought that's what it meant to be a student athlete was you had to excel in both. Everybody always says, the student comes first. It's student, then athlete. And I always actually said, I don't think that's true. I actually think you're just fully both. You could reverse the order. It doesn't matter. You need to go all in on both if you're going to get the full experience and if you're going to get the most out of this. And so I wanted to be an academic All-American, and I was fortunate enough to do that. And I wanted to be a first-round pick. And because I thought in my head, if you're not a first-round pick at Ohio State, you're not good enough. That's what Ohio State requires you to be that good. That's the requirement. That's the responsibility you have to the team. And so that was my goal. And when it was draft time, my agent said I'd be picked somewhere between 25 and 35. And the truth is, agents don't really know.
Right.
Like, a lot of agents told friends of mine they'd be picked in the first round. They didn't go to the fourth round. But, my agent was saying 25 to 35. Well, there's 32 teams in the NFL. So, you're kind of right on the razor's edge. And from 25 to 32 felt like 50 hours. I mean, every pick, you're just like, golly, are they going to call me or what? And so to finally get that call with the Colts on the clock was really special. And I think for the first time in my life, I just felt an enormous weight off my shoulders. I felt like the thing I'd been trying to do since I was a little kid, and I can tell you the day and the moment that I decided that I wanted to be an NFL football player, and I was so young. I was sitting in a booster seat in a barber shop in Avon Lake where I grew up, but I just felt like the thing I'd been working for finally happened, and it just felt this like, whew, man. So, I guess maybe some people party when it's over. I went to sleep. I was just so worn out. So I went and had dinner, and we were, I had friends in town. They wanted to go out, go to the bar. It was like 9:00. I'm like, guys, I'm beat. You guys go out, party your butts off. I'm going to sleep. So that was my draft day.
I had dreams my son would be a college football player down there at Ohio State, and he was playing for Brecksville during COVID, and he was a fullback. And I don't know why I encouraged him to be a fullback. He should have been a tight end or a receiver, but now he's 6'3" and he'd be amazing.
Oh, wow.
But they were playing Revere, and it was a meaningless game. The season was over, but the coach set up some like 6 games to play just to keep the kids active during COVID. And my kid was going out for a block, and he had a what kind of fracture is that on your wrist? Well, anyway, his wrist was in the shape of a Z. So he broke both bones in his arm, and he gave up football after that. But
that happens. Football, 100% injury rate. It's just
that's what I said. I always said that.
Yeah.
I would always say the longer you play sports, your factor of getting hurt increases by 100%. So
yeah, they always told it the injury rate, it's 100%. In the NFL, it's 100%. It's just a question of how can you recover from those injuries, and when does the big one hit, where all of a sudden you can't do it anymore.
So when you found out you were going to be catching passes from Peyton Manning, I mean, Peyton Manning was going like 15-1. It almost seems like every year he was, double-digit wins in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be pretty friggin' exciting, right?
Yeah, no, it's a little intimidating at first, but no, very exciting. I think the thing for me is I wanted to study up and prepare and know that playbook inside and out, because he's a no nonsense guy, but he's known as having this incredible football mind, and he does. I always tell people of all the people I've ever been exposed to in my life, he's the one who's the best at his craft. Whatever that craft is, he's the one who's the best at his craft. And he taught me, honestly, he taught me how to be a professional, not just professional football player, but how to be a true professional, how to obsess over the details, how to make sure that, you're reliable, that you're always doing what you need to do to improve, to get better, to push yourself, to push your team. Like I became a better person, better professional, better leader, for having the opportunity to work with him for 5 years. And now we're just friends, and he's a great friend. Like he's just, I always tell people, incredible football player, hilarious guy, great leader. He's an amazing friend. Like he's just somebody you can rely on. You can call, he's just there for you.
You still in contact with him?
Yeah. We see each other a couple times a year. He's got, he has this children's hospital in Indianapolis, Peyton Manning's Children's Hospital, and he throws a fundraiser. It was a couple weeks ago. And there's a couple of us that come in every year, and, it's sort of like a reunion for us. We got the same routine. We go to the event. He always has a good country music act. We had John Pardee this year. Last year at Parker McCollum. He's good artist, but anyway, so he'll do that, raise a bunch of money, and then there's a restaurant in Indianapolis called St. Elmo's, which has the most amazing shrimp cocktail, and we'll go there and just hang out. And then the other way we've stayed in touch is we're all in a fantasy league together, which he references on air sometimes when he's doing Monday Night Football. But yeah, we got a nice little text chain that's always lit up during football season. And then the third thing that's really kept us together, which is really neat, is a lot of those guys have gone into the Hall of Fame. And so, when that happens, the Colts do a great job of throwing a big party and having everybody come in. So like Dwight Freeney went into the Hall of Fame this past year, and we were all back. And, because I represented that area, I get to show them some spots that, otherwise they wouldn't know about. And so we've been able to have a lot of fun together.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I love watching Peyton. He's such a master, especially at almost comedy and commercials, advertising. When he was on Saturday Night Live, every time I see that, it cracks me up when he's throwing those balls at those little kids and screaming at them. I could just see, I've seen so many videos of him like kind of bitching out, was it Jeff Saturday? And the punter. Yeah. I can only imagine getting reamed out by Peyton. You probably feel about this tall.
Oh yeah. No, it's he's a perfectionist. There's no doubt. So I did one of his shows. He has a show called Peyton's Places on ESPN Plus. And when I was in Congress, they did an episode on a bill that JFK signed that granted revenue sharing to the NFL. It's like a landmark piece of legislation for the NFL. And he asked me if I'd be in the show, and of course I was happy to do it. And my staff was like, "Oh, can we meet him? Can we get a picture or whatever?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll do pictures." I was like, "I'm just warning you, like he's working. Like this isn't like fun time for him. Like he's going to be pretty intense." And sure enough, they come in. He's in makeup. We say hello, and the producer or director, somebody's there, and they're going over lines, and Peyton's, same thing as if he was yelling at me on the field. "Hey, what is this line? Did you change this? If you're going to change this, you gotta tell me." Just ripping this guy for just being a little bit off the detail. Right. And I started cracking up, and I was like, "Guys, I told you this. Just if you're going to work with this guy, this is how it works. He's going to be a bunch of fun. He's going to be a great friend. And he's going to rip you if you're not on your stuff." So, he runs a tight ship, and that's part of why we were able to win so many games. And like I said, it's I don't rip people, but the attention to detail and just really being on it and being intense about that, I definitely took that from him.
Now, listen, if he ever needs any fundraising items, let me know. I mean, I make, I don't know if you've seen my wavy flags, but they're actually pretty amazing, and they raise a lot of money when I donate them. I just did a charity last weekend, Neopat, Northeast Ohio Patriot Project. Yeah. The flag raised $2,700, but I did one when Officer Bartik was killed a few years ago, and it raised $27,000. Wow. So if that's amazing. For these fundraisers you do, if you ever need anything, you have all my contact information. If you ever need anything, just let me know. And I donate those things all the time. I'm probably a bad businessman. I donate probably more than I sell. So, but which is good because I love, being helping out whenever I can.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely keep that in mind. Thank you.
But if you haven't seen the wavy flags, you got to see them. So
I will check that out. I have not.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. So, what are your favorite memories in the NFL? You said you were there 5 years with Peyton. So, what's your favorite memories?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it's the guys, it's the locker room, it's the BS and just hanging out and kind of grinding together. I would say, like there aren't any, we had some big wins for sure, and those are all great. They really are, but. In all honesty, like this maybe will sound bad, but I remember we were playing the Patriots my rookie year, and it's a huge game. I think they were 7-0. We were 7-0, or maybe we were 6-1, but it was a big game. And somebody came up to me before the game and said, you know, this is bigger than Ohio State, Michigan. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't think so. I mean, this is a big game. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited to play in this, and I'm honored to play in this, but this is not bigger than Ohio State, Michigan.
Obviously, it wasn't a Buckeye or a Wolverine that said that.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And so I thought, again, like we had amazing wins. We had some fun come from behind wins. We did beat the Patriots a couple times. They were our big rival. But NFL is, to me, the thing that I've probably maintained, and this did surprise me, is I've retained all of those relationships, and those guys have continued to be really important friends, sometimes mentors. Tony Dungy was somebody I called when I was in Congress when all the George Floyd stuff was going on, and just I said, hey man, help me understand this. Like I feel like I just don't. I usually have good answers, and right now I feel like I don't have good answers. Maybe I don't have good answers, but I at least feel like I can think through things. And he was there. We spoke for 3 hours about his take on that situation, but also race relations in the U.S. over the course of his entire life, and really had just had incredible advice for me on how to lead through these kinds of situations and where to focus. And he had, I'll never, the advice he gave, for what it's worth, was just perfect. And it stuck with me and will stick with me, because I said, hey, look, like everybody, if you remember, when it first happened, there's just so much noise in the system. And there was a lot of, obviously, pretty violent protests and these sorts of things. And I was thinking, how can I be useful here? Like, I want to be useful. I want to bring people together. I want to calm down the tensions. I want to help people see, one another differently. But I couldn't figure out how to do it. And so I called Tony, and he said, again, we talked for a while, but his basic advice was, he said, start at your dinner table. He said, start with your family and make sure your family's good. And then expand that to, close friends and family, and just keep expanding your circle. And you'll start to find the right words. You'll start to find the right path. And, but start with what's most important, which is the people around your dinner table. And that was really good advice. I mean, just really good advice, because it put it all in perspective.
Right.
Which is, at the end of the day, like, the national dialogue can go in a million directions, but the people, even if you're a member of Congress and you're representing, 700,000 people or whatever it was, you still got to be right at home more than anywhere else.
Right.
And that was really good advice. But I share that to say, like, when I was in the NFL, I never would have guessed that, however many years later, I'd be calling Tony Dungy for advice. He'd take the call, and we'd have an amazing conversation. And I honestly never would have guessed that I'd still be as close with the guys in the locker room, because we're all from everywhere. Like, Dallas Clark's from Iowa, Peyton's from New Orleans, Jeff Saturday's from Georgia, Austin Colley's from California, Reggie Wayne's from New Orleans, Marvin Harrison's from Philly. Like, we go our separate ways. It's not like we still live together. And despite all that, we've all stayed in really close contact. And it's like every time we see each other, it's just a big, happy family.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So who was the hardest hitter? You ever get your bell rung?
Oh yeah.
Who was the hardest hitter in the league that you played against?
I mean, I'll tell you, the joke I would always tell is I'm in the Hall of Fame if you watch Ray Lewis's highlight tape. So it's he cleaned me out pretty good. It was
he did that to a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't alone in that. But the thing with Ray Lewis, everybody's like, it's the NFL. Everybody's big and fast. Ray Lewis was like deep. Like, it's like a strange thing to say, but like from chest to back, he was just massive. Like it was like he was wider than everybody else, or like deeper. And so you would see him, and like in height, he doesn't look that big. I think he's like 6'2" maybe, but which is tall. But like, there's some giants out there. But then you see him from the side, and you're like, good grief, that guy, that is a big boy. And so anyway, so it was a 3rd and like 11 or something, and I was on the outside and was running an in cut at about 16 yards, and I was coming across the middle. The ball was thrown, and I was looking at the ball, but I could also see him, like just out of the corner of my eye. And normally, if you can see somebody, you can brace, and like they're not going to totally destroy you because you can see them and you can kind of dip or duck or whatever you got to do. But he hit me so dang hard that I went vertical, bit through my tongue. I caught it for what it's worth for a first down. I spun the ball, did like the whole first down sign, thought I was, feeling good. And then I came out for three or four plays. But I had blood all in my mouth. I had to spit blood out for a while until it stopped bleeding. And so that was, that was fun. But that's in his highlight tape.
I'll bet.
Him destroying me. That was probably the hardest I got hit.
That's probably a badge of honor when your kids are old enough to start watching your highlights. You can be like, yeah, he rang my bell.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like he got me. I caught the ball. I lived to play another down, and it was it hurt like hell. But I'm glad I caught it. So
I always wish the Browns would have guys like him. I mean, just monsters on it. And Ed Reed,
Ed Reed's
Are you a Browns fan?
Oh yeah, like I'm actually, obviously I love Ohio State. I'm actually a bigger Browns fan than like anything. Like that's the Browns are the team that I love more than anything in the world. And my wife she's not from Cleveland. She's like, you gotta stop. You're just torturing yourself. I will never stop.
I raised 2 kids to be Browns fans, and it should almost be, I should be charged with child abuse or something. I was a season ticket holder. They went 1-15 one year. The next year they went 0-16. And then the year after that, they won 3 games or something.
Yeah.
I did a podcast with Jamie Meter, and I love Jamie. He's a cop now in Brooklyn Heights. But I was telling his 3 years that he played for the Browns, he only got 4 wins in 3 years.
It's crazy. I know. And it doesn't make sense because the whole league is designed for parity. Like it should, on average, you should go to the playoffs every couple of years. You should have a couple deep runs in there, and it's just nothing.
Nothing. We get good guys like Corey Coleman, and you're like, wait, was it Corey? No, not Corey. Gordon. Gordon, do you expect this? Yeah, Josh Gordon, the way he ran and caught the ball, and you're like, yeah, this is it. And then he doesn't play.
Yeah,
it's we're cursed. I seriously believe, especially the last few years since they got rid of Baker the way they did, the Browns are now cursed. It's the curse of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean that was a tough one. I wish they could have somehow. I don't know. I wish they could have just been more patient with his shoulder because the issue is he really wasn't playing well, but he also was hurt. And so if they had just let him heal and let him get out there at close to 100%, I think it would have solved a lot. And then, my understanding is there was some locker room friction with Baker and Odell, and I guess they sided with Odell, which I don't know. I'm a receiver, but receivers aren't nearly as valuable as quarterbacks. It is what it is. So I would say hopefully this is the year, but I mean, we don't even have a quarterback right now. So I don't.
You got Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett. God bless him. I hope he finds it, but they got to get somebody else in there to throw that.
They need to pull the Band-Aid off with Deshaun and just let him go. That experiment, I knew it was going to go bad.
Yeah, that was, unfortunately, that's going to go down as probably the worst trade in NFL history.
That's par for the course.
Yeah.
So What do you think about these athletes that protest on the field, or they start talking their politics? What's your opinion on that?
You know, my view on that is always this isn't really like a football view. This is a work. This is a work view.
Mm.
I run a company today, and I just don't think politics has a place in the workspace. Like I've never wanted it in the workspace. I think politics is divisive. It's difficult. I just I don't get it in terms of wanting to bring that into a work environment.
Right.
I think people should speak up on whatever they're passionate about, for sure. Like if you want to, if somebody puts a microphone in front of your face, they want to ask you about your views. If you're passionate about something, you should 1,000% speak up. Or if you want to organize your own political movements and those sorts of things, God bless. Like that's America. That's great stuff. And I may not agree with what people are doing or saying, but that's kind of part of being American, is having your say and doing it, in a way that allows you to participate in the democracy. But I view that as separate from the workplace. So like I just don't think it has a place in the workplace. And again, that's not a football view. That's
Right.
like I don't understand why people bring their politics to work. I think it's distracting. I think it's counterproductive to the business or to whatever it is you're doing. Unless, of course, you're in politics.
Right.
But absent that, I personally I don't like politics in the workplace.
No, I agree 100%. What about this men's and women's sport thing?
I think that's getting legislated out, which is a good thing. Or not legislated out, but I think people have kind of realized that there's a fundamental fairness and probably safety issue as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that's headed in the right direction from what I can tell.
I hope so.
Yeah, admittedly, I never understood that. It just never made sense to me. I think there's, obviously you want to, be sensitive to everybody and be inclusive and whatnot, but there's still there's a big safety and fairness issue. And so,
right.
I'm hopeful that that's going to continue to move in what I consider to be the right direction.
Right. Yeah. I hope, especially for all the little girls that, my daughter's a senior in college now. So, her sports days are done, but these little girls, look at like people like Riley Gaines that had to put up with all that crap that she had to put up with. But, I hope they, take care of that. So we've talked a little bit about your, the politics. What actually made you want to get into politics and be a congressman?
I always say it's corny reasons. I love our country. I'm proud as can be of our country. I love Ohio. I'm proud of where I grew up. And so I wanted to serve. And, again, back to, it's funny, I could go get it. It's in my bedroom, but back to the file that Coach Tressel sent me. He had us do these goal sheets every year on a couple different dimensions. So it was, family, spiritual, physical, professional. What am I missing? Like academic, intellectual. Anyway, and or community was the last one. And so he had you set short-term, long-term goals. My long-term goals, which I put on every single goal sheet, I've got 3 of them back there that have it, is that I wanted to be the governor of Ohio. And so I've always wanted to serve. I have. I obviously wasn't in the military, but I've always had a huge amount of respect for the military. And so I just wanted to do my part at some point. I have no desire to go back into politics. I'll say that. So my governor dreams are over, but
we'll scratch that question off.
Yeah, but the desire to to be a part of our state and our country, and just try to do my part to make it better. Maybe I made it better, maybe I didn't. That's up for other people to decide. But I know that's why I got into it, and I know I spent every day trying to do it, and did it as best I could. So that was the reason, honestly. Just wanted to serve. I believe in our country, believe in our state. I love both of them, and they've given so much to me and my family. I want to try to give back.
Well, that was one of the reasons that I wanted to give you one of my flags, was to show my appreciation for you wanting to step up and serve, because there's a lot of people that'll sit there online or whatever, and they'll bitch about the country, and, they won't do anything. You wanted to, get in that swamp and see what you could do. And I know you did the best you could. When I came to DC, it was actually so cool because, again, we missed each other, but you graciously did you wrote an absence excuse for my son, because I took him out of school. And so on congressional letterhead, you wrote the coolest absence excuse. Now he was in high school, so he didn't even need one. I could just call him in or whatever. But when I gave that absence excuse to his principal, and I'm like, here you go, this is Joey's absence excuse, and that nice blue binder. And he's like, what? And he's like, this is the coolest excuse I've ever gotten for somebody. Thank you. So I know he's got that hanging on his wall somewhere.
That's
but
funny.
I just thought that was really cool that, that you did that for my kid. But you also got us a tour of the Capitol, which was really cool. And we got a tour of the White House, which was also really cool. I'd never been to the White House. So that was pretty nice.
That being able to set people up with those tours is one of the cool perks of the job, I guess. It's like, it's no skin off our back. Obviously, we're happy to do whatever we can. And the nation's capital, it's, again, you can be disappointed, frustrated, et cetera, with what happens in Washington. And we all should be in many respects, but it's still an amazing place. And, there's still so much history that has happened in the halls of Congress or in the White House. And, it's cool. I can still give tours of the Capitol, which is nice. And actually just gave my niece, who's in 8th grade at St. Raphael's in Bay Village, her 8th grade class was in DC, and I took him through the Capitol and took him on the floor and all that, which was really sweet. So it was fun.
That's great that you can still do that.
Yeah, I think it's like the only perk I have, but I'll take it.
Well, you get the pension too, right?
No, I wasn't in long enough for that.
Oh, really?
No, I don't know how long you got to be in, but I wasn't in long enough for that. I don't.
So what was the biggest challenge for you transitioning from sports? And I know you went back to school and then getting into politics. What was a big transition?
Politics. So prior to doing politics, I don't think I ever gave a speech in my life. Like, I'm a shy person. I am an introvert. I don't like, the reason you haven't seen me on anything is because I just like being a private person.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I've sort of disappeared for the last couple of years, at least from public life. But that was a big challenge for me. I remember when I got into it, one of my good friends was like, you got to like speak, right? Like you have to like go introduce yourself to people who don't know you, and you have to like be in front of people. I was like, yeah, I got to figure that out. So I had to develop that. That was a big challenge. But I like those sorts of challenges. I get bored if I'm not, trying something new. So that was a big challenge. And then, honestly, it's just, I was such a private person, and I always had my political beliefs, but I never really publicized them. Like, they were mine, and they stayed in my head. And, I talk about them with my family, but like, I wasn't out there doing anything political. And so there's definitely some anxiety around that of just, what's this going to feel like when I step out and start taking positions on things that are, people are passionate about on both sides. And I got friends on both sides of the issues. So that was nerve wracking, but eventually you get over it. And I think the way I got over it was, my dad gave me a piece of advice, which was really good. He said, look, son, you're the only one who's got to look yourself in the mirror at night. So, just make sure you're happy with who you're looking at and don't worry about anybody else. Easier said than done.
Advice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, easier said than done, but I will say, like, in the hardest moments, I would come back to that a lot. Like, hey, people can be mad at me, but like, I'm just doing the best I can. And that's just how it is. Like, I don't expect a perfect record, but I just want to do what I think is right. And if people disagree, I am sorry. I wish everybody agreed. It's just not the world we live in. And so, you do the best you can and you can sleep well at night.
Well, people get so animated about politics on both sides. And I think politicians do a really good job of dividing us. I mean, behind closed doors, are Republicans and Democrat, congressmen and senators, are they friends? Are they hanging out? Or
a little bit? I mean, you can have, I would say it's like anything, right? Like, you can have friends who you disagree with on politics, right? Like, and you're still friends because you bond over different things.
Right.
You bond, like Tim Ryan, right? Tim Ryan and I politically were very different. I like Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan's a fun guy. He's fun to be around. We can talk about the Browns. We can talk about the Buckeyes. Like, he's not that different from me in terms of kind of the things we're interested in. We just have a very different view of what's best for the state and the country in terms of how to get there. We probably agree on a lot of the problems. It's just, how do you get to the solutions?
Right.
And so I found that with a number of Democrats where I was friends with them on a personal level. But, in terms of the policies, then obviously we disagree. But I think you're right that there are definitely politicians who traffic in division because it helps them. I personally didn't want to be that way. I wanted to be somebody who tried to bring people together. So I think it's healthier, frankly, and I think it's more likely to lead to a good outcome. And so that was always my tactic. But between politicians and the media, which is to me like the most disgusting entity in the country, those forces will divide. And then social media also, the algorithms are designed to divide. So, right. You've got those three forces, and I think social media and media are the bigger ones. And then the politicians just kind of, some of them, not all of them, some of them will just line up in their corners and start throwing haymakers, and nobody's better off for that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So our mutual friend Brian Bowman, who set this up, and I'm so grateful. When he talks about his time working with you, he says what he's most proud of that you guys worked on is getting Americans back from Afghanistan. What are you most proud of your time in office?
Honestly, that one's up there. Let me talk about Brian for a minute, because Brian's one of those unsung heroes of our community. Brian has dedicated his life to the veteran population, as you know. Mm-hmm. He himself served. When he says we got Americans out of Afghanistan, what he really means is he got Americans out of Afghanistan. That was one of the most difficult things that we dealt with, and one of the things that impacted me the most personally, because I'll forget the time. The time I'll mess the timeline up a little bit, but basically, we got notice maybe 3 days prior that the military was going out. Biden announced it. We're pulling out on this day, and anybody who's not out by this day, there will be no American presence on the ground. And so you got to get out now. And of course, there's a flood, and there weren't enough ways to get folks out. And we were trying to message that, saying, hey, if you have relatives in Afghanistan, you got to get them out now. We're not going to be able to help after, whatever date. And so we were pushing that through our social media channels, and it was radio silent. We didn't have much going on. And in terms of, people saying, hey, I need help. And then sure enough, I think the day after, a gentleman walked into our Strongsville office and said, my wife and kids are there. And it was like, oh no, now what do we do? And Brian he worked nonstop for, multiple weeks. The State Department completely let us down. They had nothing for us. I'll tell you, the guy who actually, and this really surprised me, I built a relationship with him after this. The guy who helped the most was Jake Tapper, the CNN reporter. I think he wrote some books on Afghanistan. And so he had a lot of contacts in the country. And I was texting him while he was on air, like, hey, I've got I've got a woman and her kids there. Can you help? And he was connecting us to different people on the ground that he knew. And Brian was liaising with those people. And I'll be honest, I still don't know how we got him out, but it was rough. I mean, your heart just breaks. And the poor guy, I mean, the dad, he was so frustrated because we just couldn't give him answers. I mean, we called, there was a number that they gave congressional staff, the State Department, hey, if you're trying, call this number. And mostly staff would call, but then I started calling. And I'd give them the names of the people, and I'd give them the passport numbers, and so we had all that. And they'd say, okay, we'll call you back in, 4 hours. Well, 4 hours goes, nobody calls. So I call back, say, hey, I called, 4 hours ago. Okay. And same rigmarole. All right. What are their names? What's the passport numbers? Blah, blah. I said, are y'all writing this down somewhere? Like, is there, like, I just called, like, these are Americans who are stuck. Like, can you please help us? And we got nowhere. And then Brian finally got him. And again, I don't even remember how he did it, but I know it wasn't through the official channels. I'll tell you that. It was because he just wouldn't let it go until they were home. And so that was a big moment, honestly. That was all him. Yeah, that was all him.
Well, he's very humble about it, but he definitely says that that's what he's most proud of. And he specifically says working with you to get them out. So
all I did was call and yell at people. He actually did. Like, I shouldn't say all I did was call and yell. I mean, I was trying to hit networks that I could, right? Like, Jake Tapper said he knew people. All right, I'll let Jake Tapper help. So-and-so said they knew people. All right, well, like, I'll try anything. I just want to get these people home. So, yeah, that was tough. But Brian deserves all the credit for that. He's the guy.
So what's the biggest lesson you learned serving in Congress those 4 years?
Some personal ones for sure. On the personal side, I would say the biggest lesson I learned was I hope this doesn't sound like I don't know. I'll say it because it's true. I think if you're going to do something that's going to be all encompassing, you better make sure it works for your family before you do it. I don't regret my service at all, and I'm proud of it. Like I said, I wanted to serve the country since I was little, and so I, having the opportunity to do that is incredible. But it really hurt my family, and they didn't deserve that. And I'll never do anything again that's going to take a toll on them like that. And so that's a big personal lesson. And that's part of why I say I'm never going to do it again, by the way. I think that's a personal lesson. I think on the positive side, I learned, and this is like the greatest learning, right? It's really easy to be a skeptic and to be pessimistic, and to worry if the country's going off the rails and all this stuff. But when you talk to people, when you get the opportunity to represent a lot of people, and you don't go to the political stuff, you go to just random events in the community, and you start talking to people. The people of the country are amazing. People in Northeast Ohio are incredible. I love them. But whether I'm in our district or I was visiting another district of another member, and you just talk to people about what they care about, what's interesting to them, you're going to find a whole lot of commonality, and you're going to find people generally in this country are great, decent people who are working really hard and just want it to be a little bit better. And that's a wonderful thing. Like, I think that's part of the spirit of the country, that by virtue of having the position that I did and getting to meet so many people and take on so many issues, you just feel that in a different way. I never felt that doing anything else, and so it was really special.
Well, I think that's what people have gotten away from, is having conversations with people, getting outside your comfort zone a little bit, maybe, and having a face-to-face with people, and this doing stuff online, and arguing with people on social media or whatever. That's not communicating. And I love what I do, and I can get out and talk to people. I was always introverted too, but boy, I love talking, especially to veterans, and sharing our stories, and just seeing what it doesn't matter which way they lean politically. I mean, I lean a certain way, but I try not to infuse that into a conversation, especially if we're talking about serving or things like that. So, but people need to get out and just talk to people.
Yeah, no, that's 100% agree. And if you do that, you'll just become way more optimistic. It's like most people are pretty great. Sure, there's some jerks out there, but by and large, I think, I have such an optimistic view of our country as a whole, because I served and because I got to meet so many great people.
Well, do you have any regrets about anything you did in Congress?
Nothing comes to mind, honestly. Like, I did the best I could. I think if I felt like I wasn't really grinding on the issues, or, really trying to come to like an informed view, I'd be disappointed in that. But my staff could tell you, like my legislative staff, we worked really hard on the issues, and we tried to come to an informed view, and we put it forward. It wasn't always popular, but it was the best I could do. And so, in that regard, I feel like I served in a way I can be proud of. Like, at the end of the day, honestly, like it kind of gets back to that piece of advice my dad gave. Like, you're the only person who's got to look yourself in the mirror, so you better like what you're looking at. I wanted to be able to say that, and I wanted to be able to, my kids are young, but when they're older, I want to be able to look them in the eye and say the same thing, which is, hey, look, I didn't get it always right, but like, I can tell you for sure I was doing everything I could to get it right. And so that was, I think that's all you can ask from a member.
Right.
And that's what I try to do. So yeah, I don't think I have any regrets.
Good.
Yeah, not like big ones. I mean, I wish I would have seen my family more, but we're making up for lost time now. So
That's
um,
good.
yeah.
You got to see a lot of cool I mean, you talked about the history of DC, which I'm a huge fan of history. What's the coolest thing you got to see? I mean, like, were you going in the catacombs of the Capitol building, or did you get to see the Lincoln bedroom or anything?
I didn't see the Lincoln bedroom. I got to go in the Oval Office a couple times. That was pretty cool. That place is just special. I'm trying to think. You know, that Air Force One, I got to do that once. That was really neat. Actually, I'll tell you, the one that was probably the coolest was Camp David. So I got to go there for a weekend with my wife and a couple other members. I don't think I'm allowed to say much about the place, but that was really cool. That was really cool. That they've got when there's just like your room. There's a list of all the people who have ever stayed in it, and you read it, and it's like really heads of state and
Yasser Arafat.
yeah, things like and you're like, golly, what am I doing here? Like, so that was it's definitely the least interesting person to ever stay in that room, but that was really cool. That was a really special one, I would say.
So you ever going to write a book about your experience?
I honestly, I've thought about writing a book, not about just Congress. I think
Your whole story is so interesting.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anybody would find it interesting, but
That's why I'm talking to you, Anthony.
yeah, I've always wanted to do that. I think if I'm doing something in business right now, if this is a big success, and obviously I want it to be, then maybe I would do it after that's done, because I feel like I'd have I've got a political chapter, I've got an athletic chapter. I want to get a really good business chapter of my life, and then then maybe we'll see. I've thought about it, honestly. I don't know if anybody would read it, but
I'll buy one.
Thank you. I had my grandmother, my dad's mom, write her memoirs before she passed away. She was a really special person to me. She lived with us when I was a kid, and
oh my God, I'll bet the history she lived through with Castro. Oh my God.
Yeah, she was involved in that whole thing on the other side, not on Castro's side, but anyway, yeah, like her memoir was fascinating, because I'd hear these stories, and I'd be like, that can't be right, and you're trying to kind of like piece it all together. And so before she passed, I had her write it, and I was like, man, what a story. And so I've always thought, maybe I do it just for my kids, but at some point I would probably write something down.
Now, have you ever been to Cuba?
I have, yeah, just once. I was the first person in my family to go since they left in 1960, and so it had been a while, and it was interesting. That memoir that she has, and also in my bedroom over here, has a bunch of pictures from. She studied at the University of Havana Law School with my grandfather, and they have this really cute picture of them leaning up against a statue that's on the steps leading up to the law school. And one of the first things I did was go there and get my picture taken, and the statue looks the exact same.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, the rest of Cuba is a disaster. It looks like a war zone, but the school they've kept nice, and so that was really special. And then my dad went a couple of years after, and it was really hard for him, because he remembered the beautiful Cuba, and to see what it had become and what communism had done to it. It was just really hard for him. But yeah, I've been once. I don't know that I'll go again. It's kind of one of those, like, I wanted to see it. I wanted to go to the places where I wanted to go where the pictures were, where
Right.
the things in the memoir, and I got to do that. Maybe I'll go with my kids someday if they want, but yeah, it's not a great place. I mean, it's a sad place more than anything.
Bet.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's sad.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I think I've taken up enough of your time. I really appreciate you doing this with me. I don't think you have to worry about being in the public eye too much. I don't know how many people will see this, but I'm trying to grow my podcast. But I'm really honored to know you and to have given you those flags and to have met you in your office. I love the pictures that I have, the couple events that we did together, and like I said, if you ever need anything, fundraising items or anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me. This was fun. I'm glad you did this with me. I know you're very private, and I respect that, and I'm honored that you did this with me.
No, my pleasure. Honestly, thank you for all that you do for the veteran community, what you've done for the country. When I was asked to do this, it took 1 second to say yes. So I appreciate you for all you're doing, and hopefully somebody listens to it. I don't talk much anymore, at least not for a living. So but this was fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, I do too, and let's try to stay in touch.
Absolutely, we'll do.
And
Thanks,
thank
Joe.
your bride and your kids for letting me hanging out with me for a little over an hour. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem.
All right, we'll talk again soon, Anthony.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.
All right, bye.
Bye.